Hollywood didn't just dream up Star Wars out of thin air. The galaxy far, far away grew from scraps of earlier films, many of them strange, overlooked, or downright forgotten. Want to know which obscure space tales helped shape one of the biggest franchises in history? From robot sidekicks to eerie wastelands, the blueprints were hiding in plain sight. Let's rewind to the 1970 seconds and uncover the secret cinema that built the legend. Silent Running, 1972. Before audiences fell in love with R2-D2, there were Huey, Dewey, and Louie. These three squat, clunky little maintenance drones stole the show in Douglas Trumbull's Silent Running. And if you think George Lucas wasn't paying attention, think again. Released in 1972, this eco-sci-fi story wasn't about lightsabers or duels. It was about one lonely botanist trying to preserve the last forests of Earth aboard a massive space freighter. Bruce Dern plays Freeman Lowell, a man obsessed with protecting Earth's final bits of nature after the planet has been stripped bare. His only companions? The drones who, despite being mute, brimmed with personality thanks to clever design and human operators hidden inside the suits. They weren't flashy, they were clunky and awkward, and yet they were loyal, lovable, and strangely relatable. Sound familiar? Lucas took that exact formula and polished it into R2-D2 and C3PO, machines that weren't just props but true characters. Where Trumbull showed that robots could make you laugh, cry, and feel genuine affection, Lucas doubled down and gave them central roles in his space saga. Without Silent Running, Star Wars might have been missing its most human characters, ironically, the ones made of bolts. But the influence goes deeper. Silent Running also carried the idea that space isn't shiny and glamorous. The freighter was cluttered, industrial, and worn down. That used future look became a trademark of Star Wars, with its dingy corridors and beat-up ships. Lucas rejected the sterile perfection of sci-fi before him, and Trumbull's vision helped light the way. Mini conclusion. Silent Running was a quiet film, but it left a loud legacy. It gave Star Wars its heart robots with soul, space that felt real, and a hero fighting to preserve something worth saving. The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976. What happens when an alien crash lands on Earth, not to conquer, but to survive? That's the haunting question behind The Man Who Fell to Earth, a film that swapped space battles for emotional alienation. Starring David Bowie in one of his most iconic roles, the movie told the story of Thomas Jerome Newton, a fragile outsider who arrives on Earth seeking water for his dying planet. Bowie was the perfect casting choice. His androgynous, otherworldly presence made him feel like he truly didn't belong on Earth. The film unfolds like a slow burn. Newton builds a fortune using alien technology, but as humans exploit and corrupt him, his mission crumbles. Instead of triumph, we watch his loneliness grow. So where does Star Wars come in? Not in plot, but in tone. Lucas saw how sci-fi could do more than show rockets and gadgets. It could humanize the alien experience. Newton wasn't a monster or a cliché invader. He was a lost soul. That sensitivity opened the door for characters like Chewbacca or Yoda to be seen as more than just costumes. They had depth, humor, vulnerability. Visually, the film also pushed boundaries. The sleek use of technology, the blending of human and alien imagery, and the melancholy landscapes offered an artistic approach to sci-fi that told Lucas it was okay to dream big visually. Even in Star Wars, amidst the action, there's always a quiet current of longing. Luke staring at twin suns, Leia mourning her lost planet. That mix of spectacle and sadness? The Man Who Fell to Earth proved it worked. Mini conclusion. Bowie's alien wasn't blasting his way to victory, he was breaking our hearts. In his tragedy, Lucas found inspiration for the emotional core of Star Wars. That even in a galaxy of starships and heroes, it's the feeling of being an outsider that truly resonates. THX 1138, 1971. Before the galaxy, there was the cage. George Lucas didn't leap straight into Star Wars. He started with a grim, claustrophobic vision of the future. THX 1138 was his debut feature, expanded from a student short, and it laid down more DNA for Star Wars than most people realize. The story follows THX, played by Robert Duvall, in a sterile underground society where emotions are suppressed, individuality is outlawed, and conformity is enforced by faceless guards. It's a film of whispers, alarms, and blinding white corridors. Not exactly the space opera Lucas would later unleash, but essential groundwork. Just look at the aesthetics. The stark, polished surfaces, the endless hallways, the faceless guards in white suits. Sound familiar? That's the Empire in its infancy. The stormtroopers of Star Wars are direct cousins of these blank enforcers, terrifying precisely because they're identical and dehumanized. And then there's sound. Lucas and sound designer Walter Murch experimented here with layering, distortion, and mechanical noise. It created an unsettling atmosphere, but more importantly, it taught Lucas how to use sound as part of storytelling. By the time he reached Star Wars, he had perfected it, turning spaceships, droids, and blasters into a full symphony of the future. THX 1138 wasn't a hit with general audiences. It was too cold, too strange. But for Lucas, it was the sandbox where he tested ideas, oppressive systems, resistance, and the possibility of escape. Swap out sterile walls for Death Stars and add myth, and you see the blueprint. Mini conclusion: THX 1138 wasn't Star Wars, but it was the cocoon. Without this eerie dystopia, there might never have been a rebellion among the stars. Zardos 1974. Sean Connery. A red outfit. A giant. Floating stone head barking. The gun is good. Sounds ridiculous? It Island. But Zardos, directed by John Boorman, was more than a punchline. It was a daring myth disguised as sci-fi weirdness. The film takes place in a future where humanity is divided between Eternals, who live in sterile luxury and cannot die, and Brutals, who live harsh lives serving them. Connery plays Zed, a warrior who invades the Eternals' sanctuary and upends their world. So, how does this oddball film connect to Star Wars? Through myth. Boorman leaned heavily on archetypes, chosen warriors, corrupt immortals, and a clash between nature and control. Lucas, inspired by Joseph Campbell's Hero with 1,000 Faces, saw how these deep myths could be dressed in futuristic clothes. Zed and Luke aren't the same character, but they share a destiny: to disrupt a stagnant order. Even the visuals resonate. The Eternals' controlled paradise mirrors the sterility of the Empire. The brutal struggle foreshadows the grit of the Rebel Alliance, and the surreal touches giant heads. Strange rituals taught Lucas that audiences would accept mythic strangeness if it was wrapped in spectacle. Sure, Zardoz has become infamous for its costumes, but behind the laughs, it was part of a cultural experiment. Could sci-fi carry the weight of ancient myth? Lucas answered that question with lightsabers and destiny. Mini conclusion: without the daring weirdness of Zardoz, Lucas's mythic galaxy might never have been given the green light. Sometimes, even the strangest films pave the way. Logan's Run, 1976. Imagine living in a city where turning 30 means instant death. That's the chilling hook of Logan's Run, one of the last big studio sci-fi films before Star Wars redefined the genre. Directed by Michael Anderson, the film follows Logan, a sandman who enforces the age limit until he himself decides to run. Audiences were captivated by its glowing domes, flashy laser effects, and chase sequences. It was bright, colorful, and expensive, a glimpse at how sci-fi could dominate the box office again. For Lucas, the film's importance was clear. Logan's Run proved there was an audience for large-scale, effects-driven sci-fi. Without that proof, 20th Century Fox might never have gambled on his space saga. Thematically, Logan's transformation from loyal enforcer to questioning fugitive parallels Luke's journey from farm boy to rebel hero. Both stories hinge on rejecting a system built on control. The sterile perfection of Logan's domed city mirrors the Empire's obsession with order, while the rebellion outside mirrors the raw energy of Star Wars freedom fighters. Even the use of youth culture characters defined by beauty, pleasure, and fleeting time resonated. Lucas wanted Star Wars to speak to young audiences who felt trapped in systems too big to fight. Logan's Run showed that rebellion could be thrilling, not depressing. Mini conclusion: Logan's Run was flashy, flawed, and unforgettable. It cracked the door open, but Lucas blew it wide, proving sci-fi could move beyond cult curiosity into cultural phenomenon. Dark Star, 1974. Before the Millennium Falcon, there was the crumbling scout ship Dark Star. Directed by John Carpenter and co-written with Dan O'Bannon, this low-budget oddity started as a student project and became a feature. It's quirky, funny, and a little sad following bored astronauts tasked with destroying unstable planets. What mattered wasn't the plot but the look. The Dark Star ship wasn't sleek and shiny. It was cramped, messy, and full of malfunctioning tech. That used future vibe became Lucas's secret weapon. Audiences bought into Star Wars' world because it felt real, like people actually lived there. Then there were the characters, blue-collar astronauts, grumbling about their jobs, joking, and arguing. That energy fed directly into Han Solo and the Falcon crew. Space wasn't noble or polished anymore. It was relatable, lived in, and a little absurd. O'Bannon, frustrated by the film's tiny budget, later reworked ideas into Alien. But for Lucas, Dark Star was proof that sci-fi didn't have to be glossy. It could be gritty and funny too. Mini conclusion. Dark Star was the garage band version of space travel. Lucas heard the tune, cranked the volume, and turned it into a galactic symphony. A Boy and His Dog, 1975. Picture a wasteland where survival depends on your instincts and your dog can talk to you. That's the bizarre, unsettling setup of A Boy and His Dog, directed by L.Q. Jones and based on Harlan Ellison's novella. Don Johnson, long before his Miami Vice days, plays Vic, a drifter scraping through a ruined Earth with his telepathic dog, Blood, as his only companion. The film is rough, grim, and satirical, showing a scorched world where society has collapsed. Vic wanders through deserts, scavenging and fending off rival gangs, until he discovers a secret underground society trying to rebuild civilization, but with twisted values that are arguably worse than the wasteland above. It's not a happy film. It's a cautionary tale. So, how does this connect to Star Wars? Look first at the deserts. The barren, hopeless terrain of this film feels like an early sketch of Tatooine. The scavenger existence, where survival trumps morality, fed into Lucas's decision to make his galaxy a tough, dangerous place, rather than a polished utopia. Life in the Star Wars universe feels lived in, risky, and unpredictable, much like Vic's world. Then there's the companionship angle. Vic and Blood banter constantly, their relationship serving as both comedy and tragedy. That dynamic directly echoes the bond between Han Solo and Chewbacca. A boy and his dog, a smuggler and his Wookiee. The emotional math is the same, survival built on loyalty, with humor to soften the danger. Mini conclusion. A Boy and His Dog didn't just predict the wastelands of Tatooine, it proved that sci-fi could be gritty, ironic, and still deeply human. Solaris, 1972. While Western filmmakers looked outward to rockets and gadgets, Andrei Tarkovsky turned inward. Solaris, adapted from Stanisław Lem's novel, was a slow, hypnotic masterpiece about the human psyche in space. The story follows psychologist Chris Kelvin, who arrives at a space station orbiting a mysterious planet. The crew is haunted by strange visitors, manifestations of their deepest memories and regrets. This wasn't space adventure, it was a meditation on grief, love, and memory. Tarkovsky's long, poetic shots, haunting sound design, and dreamlike pacing made Solaris the anti-Star Wars, yet the influence is undeniable. For Lucas, Solaris showed that sci-fi didn't have to stick to technology alone. It could carry the weight of spirituality and mystery. That lesson fueled his invention of the Force. The Force is never explained with circuitry or math. It's mystical, ineffable, and deeply emotional. Without Tarkovsky's philosophical leap, Lucas might not have risked giving his saga such a metaphysical heartbeat. Visually, too, Solaris lingers in the DNA. Its quiet corridors, moments of silence, and sense of awe created an atmosphere that told audiences space isn't just loud battles, it's also strange and sacred. You can see that Tarkovskian mood in moments like Luke staring at the twin suns or Yoda urging Luke to trust what can't be seen. Mini conclusion, Solaris didn't thrill, it haunted. And its haunting touch gave Star Wars its soul. Fantastic Planet, 1973. Welcome to a world where humans are pets and rebellion brews in surreal colors. Fantastic Planet, La Planète Sauvage, directed by René Laloux, is a French-Czech animated parable like no other. It tells the story of Oms, tiny humans enslaved by giant blue aliens called drags. Through surreal imagery and unsettling soundscapes, we watch the Oms struggle, resist, and rise up. The film was unlike anything else in the 70 seconds. It was eerie, artistic, and unapologetically allegorical, exploring themes of domination, resistance, and survival under impossible odds. That allegorical layer fed directly into the DNA of Star Wars. Lucas didn't copy the plot, but he absorbed the spirit. The Empire is the drags, massive, indifferent, convinced of their superiority. The rebels are the Oms, fragile, outnumbered, but unwilling to surrender. The emotional blueprint is identical, an underdog fight against an overwhelming system. Visually, Fantastic Planet dared to go alien in ways live action hadn't. The flora, fauna, and strange rituals of its world were wildly inventive, inspiring Lucas and his design teams to think beyond Earth-like planets. The weird creatures of Tatooine, Dagobah, and beyond owe something to Lelou's bold animation. Mini conclusion. Fantastic Planet proved sci-fi could be both art and allegory. Lucas borrowed its rebellion spirit and surreal creativity, turning them into the foundation of a galaxy-wide struggle. Westworld 1973. Before droids and stormtroopers, there was a gunslinger with a face of steel. Michael Crichton's Westworld wasn't just a sci-fi thriller, it was a groundbreaking exploration of man versus machine. The story centers on an amusement park, where visitors can live out fantasies in simulated historical worlds until the androids malfunction. Yul Brynner's chilling turn, as the implacable gunslinger, an emotionless robot who cannot be stopped, became an icon in his own right. Why does this matter for Star Wars? The DNA is all over Lucas's galaxy. The idea of machines as both allies and threats is central to his saga. C-3PO and R2-D2 are charming and loyal, but the cold, masked presence of Darth Vader owes something to Brynner's performance. The gunslinger doesn't speak much. He doesn't need to. His relentless advance is enough to terrify audiences, much like Vader's slow, heavy-breathing entrances 2 years later. There's also the concept of a synthetic reality unraveling. Westworld showed audiences that futuristic technology could be both a marvel and a nightmare, blurring the lines between play and peril. That tension is present in Star Wars, where technology is never neutral. It's either the Empire's weapon of oppression or the Rebels' tool of survival. Finally, on a purely visual level, Westworld's sterile labs and control rooms resemble the sterile Empire interiors Lucas would later use. Crichton imagined a corporate, systematized future. Lucas turned that vision galactic. Mini conclusion. Yul Brynner walked so Vader could breathe. Westworld proved that a single machine-like figure could haunt an entire generation's imagination. Battle Beyond the Sun 1970. Sometimes inspiration doesn't come from prestige, it comes from pulp. Originally a Soviet sci-fi film, Battle Beyond the Sun was re-edited by Roger Corman for American audiences in the 1,960 seconds, but it played widely in drive-ins during the early 70 seconds. Its plot involved rival space programs, daring missions, and monsters cobbled together for shock value. On the surface, it's campy, even cheap, but its spirit, pure sci-fi adventure. For Lucas, who grew up on Flash Gordon serials and B-movie space epics, films like this were essential training ground. They weren't elegant, they weren't philosophical, but they had spectacle. Rockets blasting through space, starship duels, and a sense that the universe was wide open for conquest. Battle Beyond the Sun fed directly into that pulp energy Lucas injected into Star Wars. Even more interesting, Roger Corman's habit of re-editing foreign films to fit American tastes influenced Lucas indirectly. When Lucas built Star Wars, he blended influences from everywhere: samurai films, westerns, World War II, dogfight footage. The willingness to remix and reimagine is part of why Star Wars feels both familiar and original. Corman's cheap import might not have been high art, but it was a masterclass in genre alchemy. Mini conclusion. Battle Beyond the Sun wasn't a masterpiece, it was raw fuel. Without pulp space adventures like this, Lucas might never have dared to dream of a galaxy filled with dogfights and destiny. The Omega Man 1971. One man, one city, and endless enemies in the shadows. The Omega Man, starring Charlton Heston, reimagined Richard Matheson's I Am Legend as a sci-fi action thriller. After a plague wipes out most of humanity, Heston's Robert Neville roams an empty Los Angeles, battling a cult of mutated survivors who want him destroyed. The connection to Star Wars lies in its tone, one lone hero facing impossible odds. Neville isn't just fighting monsters, he's the last spark of civilization in a world consumed by chaos. That image resonates with Luke Skywalker standing alone against the Empire, or even Obi-Wan wandering Tatooine as a guardian of fading hope. Visually, the Omega Man made isolation thrilling. Empty freeways, deserted cities, and Neville's fortress-like home created an atmosphere of constant danger. Lucas would echo this sense of hostile landscapes and relentless pursuit, ensuring that even in a galaxy full of life, survival never felt guaranteed. There's also a mythic undercurrent, the idea of one person carrying humanity's future. That heroic weight, messianic, almost biblical, echoes through Star Wars. Luke isn't just fighting for himself. He's holding the fate of the galaxy. Mini conclusion. The Omega Man distilled the lonely hero archetype into pure cinema. Its shadow lingers in every frame of Star Wars, reminding us that sometimes one figure against the darkness is all it takes. And there you have it, the 12 hidden 70-second sci-fi movies that shaped Star Wars in ways both obvious and subtle. From pulp drive-ins to philosophical art films, each one left behind fragments of ideas, visuals, and themes that Lucas fused into a galaxy we all know today. Which of these influences surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you enjoyed the trip, and subscribe for more hidden film histories. The Force may be strong with Star Wars, but its roots stretch across a whole universe of forgotten cinema.